As I said, we're running that 24/7, and officers are patrolling the blocks, and this is throughout the day and the night, no further than 2 hours apart, just to test the wardens, to make sure that everybody understands the procedure, that everybody's in the place where they should be. Because I think you'll remember when I came to the OSC, there'd been an activation that had generated some actions on our behalf to make sure the wardens were where they should be and doing what they should do. Those tests every single day, through the night, no further than 2 hours apart. And the other thing of note at the moment, and I think everybody's probably aware of this, but we had the ARUP report on the 20th. It came in as we were expecting. We posted it online immediately so that residents could see that. When we'd read it and understood it, we generated an executive summary, I think, ARUP created for us. We delivered a letter on the Monday to everybody, including those people who'd moved away from the estate, to tell them that the report was online. The next day we delivered the executive summary, again by hand, and to the people who'd moved off the estate, because we know people who've moved still have an interest in there. We had an open meeting on the 23rd of November, which residents attended, and our colleague Neil Purvis has collated a whole raft of questions that had come from both the report and from that evening, and I think answers to those are almost ready. We had an exhibition on the 30th where ARUP came down to the TRA hall and presented to residents who came in, and it was a one-on-one presentation, so it wasn't just walk around and have a look at stuff. It was people were there to talk to if they wanted to have an individual conversation with representatives from ARUP. And finally, with regards to the recommendations from the ARUP report, we've got some draft timelines which I think are being discussed with residents tomorrow at the resident participation team. And I think they're the headlines, Chair.
Thank you very much. That's good to hear, Stephen.
I'll just pick up one thing which Cheryl touched on, and that's with regard to the fire alarm system. That won't go live until we are 100% happy. Yeah. So the existing arrangement with wardens in place and so on will stay there until we are absolutely confident in the alarm solution.
Great, thank you. I noticed we've got a couple of people in tonight. I'm just checking who we've got. Would you mind just introducing yourselves? Like, I'm getting from Oz. You're Glenn. Yeah.
I'm Roger from Open Communities here in place of Neil Purvis.
Right. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take questions from the committee to start with, and I want you to listen out for things that you don't hear asked up here. And then I'll come back and you can ask a few questions as well. But if I could just start just talking about the 80 units opposite. You said exchange of contracts coming hopefully end of December.
Imminently.
And do you have any further information at this time on the due date for that building, or when you might?
No, I do not, Chair.
No, that's fine, because I remember that came up last time, so
yes.
I thought I'd just ask. Okay, I'm going to look round and see who wants to ask questions, who has anything. I'm going to start with Ben. Anybody else at this stage? Go for it, Ben.
I know this may be better to ask the residents, but I know that there were some concerns about communication at one of the early OSC meetings, and I know that some of the residents have been concerned again about some confusion about whether they need to stay in their homes or not, or they've now made that clear they need to leave. Can you give an overview of the changes that you've made in terms of communicating to residents and how kind of satisfied you are with how well you're communicating now with them?
Yeah. So starting, I suppose, at the global level, every single week a newsletter goes out to every household, and the newsletter is also emailed to people, the TNRA, the Ledbury Action Group, and some people who have moved away, or some non-resident leaseholders. It's posted on the website for them to have a look and reference. And what we try to capture in that is a summary of information, but also putting people on standby. So, for example, We've told people last week that the testing of the fire alarms would be taking place on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. So it's an information and an information exchange. We take great pains now to write to residents as necessary. So we've got a team in the hall, and if we have important information to communicate, for example with the ARIC report, that's drawn up in a letter and is hand delivered, and is always hand delivered. And as I said, even the important information to residents who've moved away from the estate is also hand delivered. So we have an assurance that that's communicated. We have a communications officer based with us who ensures that everything that we're communicating with residents is on the website, so it's there accessible immediately. And we do take great pains to try and communicate everything we can that we think residents need to know. And sometimes residents will come in and say, we don't know about X, Y or Z, and if we think, oh, that's actually really helpful and everybody else would need to know, we replicate that as well.
And just to add to that, there's also an awful lot of face-to-face contact. So Cheryl referred to the door knocking that's been happening before, wider residents meetings where they're required. So there's also that face-to-face stuff and that presence in the halls. Anybody can drop in at any time.
But the face-to-face and the telephone conversations, it's part of an embedded process now, and I think there's an expectation both from the residents and from ourselves that the two-way face-to-face is the primary contact for individual cases, and that's why we're there.
Are you bringing the residents in at the end? Is that what you said?
Yes,
yep.
that's the plan. Yeah. I've got a couple more just on fire alarms. It's good to hear that the sitting there. I know that's been a really complex bit of work, and that's I'm happy to hear that we're nearly there. There were reports of with the system in place at the moment of false alarms and buttons being pressed and so on. Is there anything you can do to kind of reduce the possibility of those, or is it just the buttons
so
there?
Initially, there was one activation where somebody left their food on, and that's just a lifestyle issue. We then had two activations, one on the Saturday the 21st and then Monday the 23rd, where we understood the alarm system was deactivated. And in fact, when it had activated on the Saturday, I went around on the Saturday morning and disconnected everything with the, I personally didn't do it, the fire smoke detector team, the engineer, he did that and I went with him and we were happy they were disconnected. But there was also a remote wireless that we hadn't been able to turn off, which then generated from a faulty communal alarm the activation on the Monday. Now we've amended that and we haven't had any more accidental in that respect. However, we have had two subsequent activations, again both through cooking, where residents, for example, somebody put their dinner on and thought they could nip to Tesco's for half an hour and the food burnt, and although that's it's difficult when people are having to come out when these things are on in a